Are you currently highlighting your textbooks and rereading all your notes in preparation for an exam? If you are, then stop because it is absolutely useless. I'm Albert Chavarria. This is another episode of Sanova, and I am joined as usual by my son, Gabe Chavarria.
I am your son.
Good one. Good one. Yes, normally it's Gabe that starts this podcast because it is his podcast. However, this time it was me that proposed the subject, so I'm the one asking the questions. Today we're going to be giving you the top 3 tips for studying and making sure that you get it right every single time so that you retain those texts, so that you retain the information and nail your exams every single time.
Yes.
So the reason I thought about this is because the holidays have just passed, the Christmas holidays have just passed, and a lot of people are going back to university to do their exams, to do their midterms. Gabe, you did your midterms before the Christmas holidays.
Yeah, thankfully I did. They
Yeah.
were nice enough to put them before, so I could chill out throughout the Christmas holidays.
Right. And to not to my surprise, but I was very pleasantly surprised to see that that you pretty much aced every single one of them.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I haven't received the grades yet, but that's a feeling. That's a feeling. Is I did very well, thankfully.
Right, and I was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't surprising to me in a like what he did what he's not capable, because I know you're perfectly capable of getting great grades, but I was surprised at how apparently effortlessly you did it in comparison to your schooling. In your A levels and your GCSEs, you seem to suffer a lot during your exams. You seem to spend hours and hours studying. And your grades didn't quite reflect the effort you put into it,
Yeah.
right? And that got me thinking, what have you done now differently to what you did in school to get good grades? And that got me thinking even further. I thought, if you've done it, there's probably a lot of people that would benefit from your wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not an educator myself, but I do work in a school. So I've for years and years I've seen our school counselor give student talks about how to de-stress for an exam, even mentioning studying techniques, relaxation techniques, etc., etc. So I've heard it all before, but I want to hear from you, from the horse's mouth, what it is that actually really, really helps. Okay.
Sounds
So
perfect.
I thought we could kind of like break down this podcast into various parts. First of all, talk about why we even need to have study techniques. Why doesn't it come naturally to us, seeing as it's part of our lives?
Yeah.
Second, mention a few techniques that scientifically are proven not to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then mention a few techniques that the scientists say do work. However, these are the scholarly scientists that are sitting in the lab studying these things. Then maybe talk about a few relaxation techniques, which I think this was pretty good. If you're stressed for exams, I think it's pretty good to know a few relaxation techniques that you might be using.
Okay.
I can mention some that I've researched, and you can mention the ones that you actually use to make you feel relaxed at the time, maybe before an exam and during an exam. And then finally, we'll end up the episode with you telling us the contrast between the scientific proven techniques and the real techniques that in a real life world environment work according to you. The ones that have worked for you during these exams. What do you think?
Sounds great. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, so let's get started. First thing, why do we even need to have techniques to study? Right?
Yeah.
We've had schooling for the last 200 years. You would think that studying would be part of our DNA by now, but it isn't at all. Right? We all struggle to study. We all struggle to retain information. Some of us are better at it than others, for sure.
Yeah,
but it's
definitely.
something that doesn't come naturally. And I've been studying. The reason for that is basically what's called the caveman brain problem.
Okay.
Right? And it's something really, really, really basic, which is the fact that our brain the hardware in our brain isn't prepared for retaining information. Our
Yeah.
brain is prepared for survival,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we actually not the fact of retaining information that isn't essential to our survival is actually quite
Intuitive to our brain.
exactly, totally counterintuitive to our nature. This is something that was studying and exams was invented and schooling was invented 200 years ago, thanks to
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Henry Ford, who needed people to be able to spend 8 hours a day in his assembly lines without questioning what they were doing. So they invented schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And 200 years ago is a long time ago, but it's not quite as long as the millions of years that our brain has actually existed. So those techniques and that imposition in our brain is relatively new, and we're
Mm-hmm.
still not used to it. So basically, our brain says, uh, you know, if you have to cross the road, you see a car coming, you instinctively know that you have to stop. You don't have
Yeah.
to learn it. You don't have to study it. You don't have to go to school to figure out that if a car comes at full speed at you, you're gonna have to stop because otherwise you're gonna get run over, right?
Yeah.
You just know that immediately. That's what your brain's made for. However, the idea that you have to study to learn anything else, your brain's not prepared for. So it's hardwired to actually get rid of that information because it considers it superfluous and unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
So realizing that, we have had to create specific techniques to allow the brain to slowly retain that information and not forget it.
Yeah.
And that's the
Makes
key.
sense.
The key isn't just learning the information, pass a test and then forget it. The key is to learn the information and retain it, because I'm assuming that's the point of learning, right?
Yeah. It should be. It should be, to be honest. It's not what always happens. I'm not gonna lie, but it is.
Exactly.
It is what the end goal
Exactly.
is.
Right. And in fact, there's also a more biological reason for not studying is the fact that thinking is really tiring, and it
Mhm.
uses a lot of energy. And your body, again, your brain and your body are hardwired to save energy and to
Mhm.
retain as much energy as possible. So doing something that's not only counterproductive to the survival of your species, but also uses up a lot of energy, is doubly counterproductive. So your brain and your body just say studying sucks, which it does. Let's admit
It does. I'm not gonna lie. It does. It really does.
That's the
That's the
reason
why.
why. That's the reason why studying is hard, and that's the reason why we need to study. We need to figure out studying techniques to make sure that our brain
Mhm.
retains the memory,
Yeah, definitely.
right?
Now you said you're going to the scientifically proven methods that do not work, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, this is something that I actually naturally found interesting because you've always been a pretty good study. You've always retained information quite easily since you were
Yeah.
little. I remember back in the day when you were 3 or 4 years old, you had no issues doing your homework and you would actually retain all that information. Now, you always had a really good memory. I've always been
Yeah.
surprised that when you were 6, you would remember things that happened when you were maybe 1 year old, and when you were 10, you would remember things that happened when you were 3 years old, and that blew my mind because I was never like that. I find it really really hard to retain information,
Mhm.
right? And so I wanted to see what would work for me. The answer in my case is not much, to be honest, because I don't have much of a I'm just not consistent enough in my studying.
Mhm.
But there are some techniques that you can use.
Yeah.
There's some techniques that are widely used, very very widely used, and surprisingly, there's a few of them that are very widely used and do not work. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna run some of them by you, and you tell me if you've been a victim of these,
Okay.
or maybe you still are. And if you're watching this, any of you are watching this, keep attention. And if you're also a victim, then let us know in the comments. Right. So study techniques that don't work. First one, and this is the one thing that they used to tell us to do all the time when I was in school, when I was a teenager back in the 80s.
Okay.
right? So highlighting and underlining your texts, right?
Yeah.
That is one technique that does not work to help you retain information whatsoever. Quite the opposite. It's a distraction to your brain because really what you're doing is drawing on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
You're not actually retaining what you're highlighting. You're just highlighting things. Your brain says, very nice line, and then moves on to the next thing and forgets totally forgets practically immediately what you just highlighted, and it doesn't retain it at all. So if you're highlighting and dirtying your textbooks with highlights and circles and lines, stop doing it now because it doesn't work.
I want to say I agree with it in the sense that if this is your only study method, then it's not the best and you should probably move on. Find some other methods that work for you. But I do think there is a place for it. I think if you have your textbook, and at the end of the day, textbooks are massive amounts of information that just keep on getting thrown at you. So if there are parts that you say, okay, this would be very good, you highlight it and you say, this would be good to know, but it's not something that you just leave it there. You don't stop there. Then you have to go put it into your notes or do whatever, put it into flashcards, you know?
Okay.
I think it's a good thing to do, but it's the beginning of a process. It's not the whole process in itself. I do want to say that because
exactly
it's like I said, it does have a place, and I think it is useful in scenarios, but it's not something to do by itself.
Yeah, you're actually saying that it's the beginning of a process, and that process turns out it has a name, and it's called spaced repetition. However, as a method on its own is absolutely useless, and it should never be used on its own. I am going to highlight this text because that way, by highlighting it, I will remember it and I will retain that information, and I will understand it. Not at all. It doesn't work. Second thing that doesn't work at all is rereading your notes. So you take your notes, and you go back, you read them again, and you say, I got this sorted. Well, that again has been scientifically proven that it doesn't work. Okay, it creates an illusion of competence. It just says, I've made these notes, I am now reading them. Because you've written them, your brain recognizes them as something that very familiar, and immediately creates the illusion in your mind that you know it. And that is not true at all. In fact, it is so easy that your brain immediately forgets it. Straight away. So rereading your notes once does not work at all. It has to be, again, just like highlighting, understanding, and highlighting or underlining your text. It has to be an infinite part of a larger process. Right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then finally, something that oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I think I'll add this into the things that do work for me. So I'll continue.
Okay. So, and then finally, one more that everybody does, and I know I've been a victim of this in the past, is the cramming, the mass practice cramming a whole semester's worth of work and knowledge into a 24-hour window or a 48-hour window and study 12 hours a day for one day, in a desperate attempt to retain absolutely everything you've learned. And that might work for that one exam that you're studying for. Yeah. But it's already proven that, well, you might ace that one exam. 3 days later, you've totally forgotten everything that you studied because it was just way too much information in too short a period of time. And your brain, again, says, I don't need that much information. It's absolutely useless to me for my survival at this point of time. So I'm going to dismiss it and get rid of it.
Yeah, that's one that's very, very true. I do it all the time, to be honest. I do it for I did it
even now.
I did it, for one of my latest exams. There was one of the lessons, one of the specific subjects which I didn't really know too well, and the classes weren't the best. So about 48 hours before the exam, me and my study buddy, we kind of just crammed all the information as much as we could until the exam, and like you said, promptly the next day completely forgot about it. I couldn't tell you
What
any
was
of the
you studying?
information that I crammed
Yeah.
now, to be honest.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sometimes that's what you got to do. You just got to cram, and then if you need it in the future, you'll start learning it the hard way, to be honest. But yeah,
But you passed your exam. It served its purpose.
I'm pretty sure I did. I did.
Yeah.
I
Well,
felt
I mean
quite
that
confident in that exam.
that does have its place, right? I mean the whole idea of having an exam is that you get good grades.
Yeah,
Whoever sets the exam does not care if you're going to be doing good after that. They just want you to have a good grade during that exam, right?
exactly.
Right. This is one of the biggest problems that our GCSE and A-level students have is that they might be great students, but they break under pressure. So their
Mm.
the whole student career relies on a 1.5 hour window,
Yeah.
and that's terrible. So well, those are pretty much techniques that I think are pretty standard that most people do, that a lot of people do, thinking that they work,
hmm
and it's already been proven that they don't work. So
Yeah.
I can tell you now a few that have been scientifically proven to work,
Yeah. Sounds
and
great.
the most recommended techniques by the great scholarly people in our world that study these things. I didn't even know that there were scientists that did this. Um,
There's scientists for everything, dude. There's scientists
yeah,
for everything that study everything.
right. So these good scientists have come up with a few techniques. I'm going to give you three of them,
Okay.
and these scientists call them the desirable they call it this desirable difficulty.
Okay.
All right. So basically, I'm assuming what they're saying is that if you make it hard for yourself, you will get a positive outcome. I'm assuming that desirable difficulty means, right? Right. The first one, and I'm going to read it out, is called active recall, right?
hmm
And this is basically reading a text, closing the book, and forcing your brain to retrieve the answer or to read back what you just read.
Yeah.
Okay? This is very, very painful, but it forces your mind to actually learn what's happening, right? That's why it's so painful, because your brain's actually learning it and retaining it and chiseling it into your synapses or whatever it is. And according to scientists, this physically strengthens the neural connection between your synapses, your learning, etc., etc.
hmm
One thing you have to bear in mind, which I hadn't thought of ever until I read it here, is the fact that learning is layered, is cumulative, right?
hmm
So when you study something, your brain finds it easier to study and to retain it if it's latching on to something else that you already know, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is the importance of actually paying attention in class,
hmm Yeah.
right? So if you pay attention in class, your brain, that's the seed, plants the seed in your brain of knowledge, right?
hmm
So maybe 3 months later, after that class comes out, you have an exam, you pick up your textbook and you start studying what you did 3 months ago. But because that seed is already in your brain has something to latch onto, and then you retain the information easier.
This was actually the one that I mentioned a couple of minutes before. That I was
Yeah.
going to mention was this is one of the things that I did for the exam that I mentioned before, where it was a similar thing, but I had my notes on all the key points that I had to memorize,
Yeah.
and instead of just reading them, closing my book and trying to say it again, is actually read them, went to the next page or went to a blank page, and then tried to write as much as I could or as much as I could remember
Right.
of that specific point. And I just did
Right.
that over and over and over again until basically it was muscle memory. And I just
Right.
didn't even have to think about it, and I just wrote it down and I knew what it was straight away.
Okay.
I'm not saying
And
that really, really did work for that specific exam, but because I did it with a whole semester's worth of notes, most of that stuff I don't remember now. But if I
right.
did it on a smaller scale and I did it bit by bit, I probably would still remember most of it right
Right. Yeah. And was it actually painful doing it?
now. It wasn't painful, but it was very tiring and very exhausting.
But well,
Um,
that's what I mean, right?
after a couple hours, I was like, oh my God, I need
Yeah.
I need to stop or I need a break or something, because it was, yeah, it's very, very tiring to be honest. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
It is,
as well. I mean, as I say, studying uses a lot of brain energy and a lot of calories.
yeah.
And it's funny that you say that. That what you should have done was rather than cram it all in one session, to do it bit by bit, because that brings us to the second um, technique,
hmm
scientifically proven technique in a lab, which is called spaced repetition, which is the one I mentioned before. And that's basically reviewing all your material at increasing intervals, right? So you study for
Okay.
one day, you study a lot one day, then you leave it for 3 days, and 3 days later you come back to it. Then you leave that, and then you come back to it a week later, and then you increase the intervals bit by bit. Why does this work? I'm going to read this verbatim because I don't quite understand it myself. Because it says it exploits the forgetting curve. That means that you remind your brain of the information just as it's about to forget it, which signals to your brain that this is important and you should keep it. Right? So the idea
Okay.
is that the first day you study something quite intensely. The next day your brain's thinking like, well, that was pretty useless because it's not necessary for my survival, so I'm gonna forget it. And before I can do that, you cram it in again. And your brain says, oh, okay, it's still here. I guess I am gonna need it after all. Right? A week
hmm
later, your brain says, well, all that studying for nothing, I don't need it, so let's just get rid of it. And then you slap it with the same knowledge again, and it retrieves it, and then finally it ends up convincing itself. Right? You convince your
Okay.
brain that that information is necessary for survival, maybe not just now, but in the future. So retain it and you'll keep it. I guess that's what spaced repetition is. Sounds a
Yeah, I
little
guess
bit
so.
sounds a little bit alien to me as a technique, to be honest. It doesn't sound
Um,
very scientific even, but
I
apparently
mean,
it's what.
I could see why it would work, but thing is, in a practical sense, I could see how this could have a few flaws in it.
Yeah.
Because I guess, for example, in a semester, well, this would need a few months worth of studying, wouldn't it, to properly and to do it, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah,
Because if it's
clearly.
if you do it, then if wait a few days, then do it again, then a week, then do it again, then what's the next step? 2 weeks, then a month, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 totally.
So in a practical sense, where we have subjects that are going on for 3 months, or at least in my case, 3 months, and then the next semester we have completely new subjects,
Yeah,
I don't have all the information that I need at the very beginning to be able to do this, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
The
yeah,
only
yeah.
way I
More or
could
less.
see
Yeah,
would be we would be doing it bit by bit.
yeah,
So I guess the first subject the first time you study, you would do with whatever you have then, and then the next time
yeah,
would be however much
yeah,
you had at the beginning plus whatever you have. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know if I'm making sense, but I could see some flaws, but I could see how that would work, because at the end of
yeah,
the day, you're just making sure you remember it, and after long periods of times of doing this, after a long period of time of doing the same thing over and over again,
yeah,
then you're going to remember, and you're going to be able to recall it later on, or for whenever you
yeah,
need it,
yeah.
if that's in an exam, or if it's
Yeah. Well, I think that's the
in the
basic
workplace.
idea. I think that's the basic idea, and that's the and this technique is really widely used, and the biggest thing is what you said before. You mentioned flashcards, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Right, and that's the whole point of having flashcards. And in fact, that's called it's part of the system called apparently the Leitner system,
Okay.
right? So so it is part of a process. It is a schedule,
hmm
and the idea of the Leitner system is the following. It says you have three shoe boxes, right? Um, in box number one, you have your everyday study. Those are new concepts, so the things you learn every single day that are new to you, right?
hmm
Box number two, this is what you learn every 3 days after you've learned the first new concepts. Every 3 days, you learn and you go back to the concepts that you got right just once. That you got right once, right?
Okay.
And then in the final box, box three, this is what you study every week, once a week, and these are the concepts that you know well, right?
Okay.
And these boxes are full of flashcards, right? So if you get a card wrong in box three, it goes back all the way back to box one because you didn't know it well. You see what I mean? So it
Okay.
goes back into the new concepts box, and then that way you get your you get a balance in your boxes so that everything falls into place. I would never be able to do this. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a really bad student and not terribly organized, and this looks like a system for somebody that's pretty organized, right?
Pretty organized and has a lot of time on their hands, to be honest.
Yeah.
You see, the thing is, right, is the way I treat studying is the simpler the better.
Right.
All of these techniques, they're really good, but at the end of the day, obviously not if you've been in the game for a very long time, like me. I'm in university, my second year of university, so I've
Yeah.
been studying properly
Quite a
for
while.
6, 7, 8 years maybe already. So it's something that I've had to find out myself, and because everyone's different,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, totally.
But I've found that all of these scientific stuff, they work, but sometimes they get a bit too complicated. Like those 3 boxes thing, I could see how it could work for someone. Like you said,
Yeah.
someone that's very organized and very, meticulous with everything that they do. But that's not going to work with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be
Yeah,
cleaning
yeah.
my room, I'm going to 3 boxes, I'm going to say, oh, get this out of the way. And then I'm going to be like, oh, damn, which box
Yeah.
was box 1, which one was box 2? And then it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah, well, that's it. This
Honestly.
is made for. This system's made for somebody who has an organized mind, which is not bad. I mean, it also helps you get organized yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
And this is obviously the hands-on analog, so to speak, system. This is the analog part of it. You also get the digital version of this of the Leitner system in applications and in sites and websites. For instance, Anki is one of them. Have you heard of it?
No.
Anki is one that we actually use at school, and that's basically a form of digital flashcards. So,
Yeah.
but it's automated. So the system creates the flashcards for you, creates the boxes for you in the sense of tiers of easy, hard, or again, and then according to the way your progress, it is the app itself that changes the flashcards from one box to another. So it repeats it at different intervals according to how well you know each card.
Yeah.
Right. Quizlet is another one. I've never used
Yeah,
that one.
that's
but
one that I
apparently,
use. I use that.
right.
This,
Right. So you use that one.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's quite useful. It's quite good.
right. So those are basically digital apps that have a variation of the Leitner system, apparently. Right. So that's the way to do it. That's a thing. And then there's another one.
Mm-hmm.
The final system that works. Final study technique that scientifically works in a lab is interleaving. And this is basically instead of cramming one subject in 3 days and studying one subject, what you do is you rotate your subjects at regular intervals so that your brain doesn't get saturated with just one thing. So, and it forces your brain to be constantly reloading subjects and doesn't fall asleep, so to speak. It doesn't get saturated with information. So apparently, it's easier to do instead of 5 hours of math. It's much better to do 1 hour of math, 1 hour of history, 1 hour of Spanish, 1 hour of science, or whatever it is.
Yeah, this is one that I use and that I've done for this past exam schedule or this exam session,
Cool.
and I don't know, it was scientifically proven, but it was just something that worked for me and worked for everyone that I've known. It's just basically because if you say, okay, I'm going to sit down for 5 hours and do maths, that does not sound like fun. You know what I mean?
No.
Frankly,
No.
after 2 hours, you're going to be like, oh my God, dude, like I'm tired of this. I just want to do something else. And that's just or that in the past, that's led me to kind of procrastinate and then go on my phone or go on my computer and do anything else that's not studying. So kind of in adding other stuff in between or stopping and going to something else has kind of helped me and kind of forced me to study more because it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's you go to something else and you're like, oh, finally I'm not doing the same equation over and over again, or the same type of questions over and over again. I'm studying, I'm memorizing something else, which isn't particularly great, but it's better than doing the same equation over and over and over again. So that
definitely.
is something that I do, that I do, and I could say it works for me and works for other people that I know.
And that would bring us to things, which is to the last bit before you tell us the 3 flawless techniques that you use to get good grades. And that's relaxation techniques, which I think is something very, very important for those people that get nervous or get anxious during the exam time when they have to study. I guess this applies mostly for exam times, right? Rather than obviously we're talking about studying techniques. The idea is that you study all year round, that you don't just study when there's exams, right?
Yeah, that's the theory.
That's the theory. I mean, the practice is, we all know the practice, right? Most of us have enough with spending 6 or 7 hours or even 8 hours sitting in a classroom, listening to a teacher or a lecture to actually then go home and study for another couple of hours. So the reality is that most of us, or most of you students, study when exam time comes.
Yeah.
And that's a really stressful time. You know, if you're a secondary school student in the UK, you have your GCSEs, you have your A levels. I personally think we overdo the stress levels for those children. I think they're too young to have to bear that kind of stress. But the truth is that we put it on there. In GCSEs, you have 10, 11 subjects that you have to study for, and they will dictate whether you do your A levels. And then when you do your A levels, you have 4 or 5 subjects, 3 or 4 subjects that you have to study for, incredibly hard ones, that will dictate whether you go to university or not. That's a huge amount of pressure. And of course, that pressure brings on stress. It brings on anxiety, and we have to talk about the techniques that there are available for us to be able to relax,
calm ourselves.
Calm ourselves.
This is I was thinking about this, and this is quite a. Oh, I found this quite a tricky thing to come up with advice for, right? Because I feel like I didn't really. I felt the pressure, and I felt nervous, obviously, because especially more during A levels, because I feel like those are higher stakes. And for example, me now is if I fail an exam, then I can go to repeats and whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't dictate if I go to university, if you know what I mean, because I'm already here, so it's kind of like these are important exams because it dictates if I go to the next year at the end of the day. Because if I fail a subject and then if I fail a repeat, then I might have to retake the subject next year. But thankfully that hasn't happened yet. But it could happen. So there is a certain level of pressure and nerves that could build up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think even if it's a small exam, and even if it's an important exam, the pressure's always there because there's always a reason why you're sitting an exam.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? There's
but
always
I feel like the ones for the A levels are, or at least I found that the pressure and the scenario in those specific was on another level. Yeah,
it's tremendous because it's a culmination of your whole schooling.
Yeah.
And you've never known anything else. Right, that is what you've been doing for all your life, and what they're telling you, what your educators are telling you, is if you don't pass those exams, your life is basically over.
Yeah,
obviously it's not true, but that's the illusion that we create in the student's mind because that's what we do. We're a school and we educate students to go to university.
Yeah,
and the unspoken thing is, if you don't pass your exams and you don't go to university, you have failed, we have failed, everybody's failed, and your life is over. It's a tremendous amount of pressure.
It is.
So having said that, I suppose there's 2 types of relaxation things here. There's two phases, right? There's the phase where you approach the exam, and then there's the actual phase during the exam. which
Yeah.
I'm assuming could be two different things. So you have coming exams coming up in a month's time. You know they're really important because either they will make or break your going to university, or in your case going to the next year. As that time approaches, your heart starts pounding faster and faster, and your anxiety levels grow and grow and grow.
Hmm.
You've been a student all your life. How do you tackle that?
So I've found I get the most nervous when deep down I know I don't know the. I'm talking about closer to the exam.
Yeah.
When deep down I know I don't really know the subject very well,
Yeah.
and I'm going into the exam and I kind of think to myself, "Oof, this could go either way." If the questions are on my side, then it'll be great. But if they're not on my side, then it's gonna be a rough it's gonna be a rough time out there.
Yeah.
So honestly, the closer for the nerves closer to the exam, I think the best thing to do is study for longer. And by that, what I mean by that is not go from 7 hours a day to 16 hours a day. No, what I mean is instead of start studying a month before your exam, start studying 3 months before your exam, because that means you can. Obviously, it depends, but that means that you can start studying the earlier stuff
Yeah.
more, so then you can, because that's what happens a lot of times. By the time you get to start studying the stuff you did at the very beginning, you're like, oh damn, I forgot all of this stuff. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
forgot how to do this stuff. I haven't done this stuff for months. So just bit by bit, start studying. Make sure you have a good feeling with the stuff that you did at the beginning. Then the same thing with the stuff that you did in the middle. And then at the end, that's the stuff that you are going to have to maybe sort of cram a bit, and you will have to take longer days of studying to just study that specific part. And sadly, that is inevitable unless you finish the subjects a month in advance before you're supposed to, which then I feel like you've kind of rushed. But anyways, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, but that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, and I think this is something. If you're listening to this and you're not a university student, you're like say an A-level student, or even a GCSE student. I think what you've said, Gabe, is paramount. I think it's really really important to pace yourself in your self-study. When we're here in school, when we do A-levels, this is something that our parents complain a lot about, but they don't quite understand. There's a lot of self-study time. It is you finish your syllabus quite quickly, and you have a lot of free periods because you're only doing 3 subjects, and there's a lot of hours in the day. It is expected that you will be using that time to self-study. And I think what's really important is what you just said. You have to take that time and make the most of the time throughout the whole year to start revising from the very beginning, so that your brain never finishes learning what you've relearned. And obviously, if you're in a school like ours, like Sunnyview School, then you have your teachers are always available to help you out in your study sessions, and it also helps calm your nerves. It helps you down, because if you're somebody like me, when I was in school, my big problem was my retention and my attention span in class was zilch. I have very, very, very low, or at least at that time, I had very little attention span. My mind would just wander. The teacher would say something, it would trigger something in my mind, and before I knew it, I was thinking Star Wars instead of listening to the teacher talk about chemistry or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which of course means that seedling of knowledge that my brain had to latch onto for later studies wasn't quite there, which means that the sooner I started studying, I would actually start creating that mesh of knowledge, so that further sessions would mesh more and more and more.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if you're a year 12, year 13 student, or first, second year university student, I think that's terribly important, because not all of us have the same attention span that you have, Gabe, for instance. You've never had problems paying attention in class and retaining what the teacher's saying. A lot of us do.
In general, no. I mean, obviously, there's
Right.
some days that I'm just bored, or there's some classes I just don't like, so then I do wonder more. But in general, no.
Yeah.
I'm okay on that side.
Yes. So it looks like it's not. It looks like studying so much actually adds pressure, but what's actually doing is take away the pressure and calming you down.
Yeah.
Because you're right. The more secure you are in your knowledge, the more confident you are going into the exam.
Yeah.
So that's a great first tip.
This also helps with the lead up to the exam, because a lot of times what I've noticed is people stress out the most because they just don't have enough time. They have other subjects that they also have to study for.
Yeah.
There's just not enough time in the day to study for the 4, or if you're in A levels, or the 6 if you're in mine, or even, like you said, 11, 12 if you're in GCSEs. There's just not enough time to study all of those and get good grades in all of those. And I agree, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of information, and it's also it gets harder and harder. You know, it's not like it's easier in some points. But anyways, our point is this will help with both scenarios, because you'll be studying for longer, so then you'll have more time.
Yeah.
So the chances are that by the end of it, you're going to feel better, and you're going to feel like you've spent enough time studying those. And if at that point, if there is a specific subject where you're like, I just don't have enough time, chances are there's going to be another subject where you're going to be like, okay, I feel quite confident and I feel very good in this specific subject. I can set it back a little bit, not all the way, a little bit, to be able to focus more time on the other subjects or other subjects that I'm not as confident in, or I don't feel as as confident in. It's kind of like a 2 for 1, you know what I mean? I feel like this could help with both.
So this is all in the run up to the exam. So the anxiety you feel a month, 2 months before the exam, knowing that the exams are coming up, are there any more techniques that you would suggest people use for that, for relax, to calm their minds?
I think at the end of the day, it's just a mentality. It's the type of mentality that you have. I feel like I'm quite a black and white guy, in the sense of, in my mind, if I know it, then I'll be good. If I don't, then I won't be as good. Maybe I can kind of waffle my way through the exam.
Yeah.
But, so that's kind of my mentality, is that if I know it, then I'll be fine. So there's no need to stress out. And then I can kind of calm myself down that way. So I think that's the approach that's helped me a lot, especially in A levels. Oh my god.
Yeah, I agree. Helps. I think confidence is key. I think having a confidence in your knowledge, confidence in your abilities, is the best way in the long run, in the run up to the exams, is the best way to calm yourself and to make sure that you're relaxed. Mm-hmm. I think another very practical technique which leads to relaxation isn't relaxing in its own. I think especially in the case of a school student that's doing A levels, being familiar with the exam that you're going to be doing, the exam structure. Mm-hmm. So what that means, doing past papers, knowing what kind of questions they're going to ask, and specifically knowing what type of answers you're expected to give in those exams. I think that's very crucial to boost your confidence, to make sure that you know that what you're getting into, how you're getting into it, and what's expected of you.
Yeah.
I think if you combine those two things, I think you're golden.
I completely agree. For me, I will die on the past papers. I will die on that hill. For me, I will go more in depth in it when we talk about the techniques that I use. But past papers are crucial. They really are.
I agree, and that's something that our best teachers at Sunnyview School, our best teachers, are huge advocates of past papers. It's what they say: just do past papers over and over and over and over again until you know the wording, until you know the type of question, but so well that you don't even have to practically, that you only have to read the question to see the particulars of what they're going to ask you, what the formula is that you have to use, but everything else you know by heart. Oh, it's that kind of question. This is how you answer it. For sure, specific, especially if they're long essay questions, history, English, that kind of thing. Because those are very specific questions, and the way to answer them is also very specific.
I'd have to disagree with you on that part. I think it's specifically it applies, and it's a lot easier to apply it to STEM subjects,
right?
To scientific and to the science-based subjects. Right. I think it's a lot easier to study with past papers there, because there the questions are exactly the same and they barely ever change. Maybe they change the numbers.
Yeah, it is.
But most of the time, it's exactly the same. So except for maybe maths, because in maths, once it gets to the harder levels, they start throwing shit at you that you're like, what the fuck? And then it turns out you have to do this and this and then this, and you're like, wow, I never would have thought about that. But seeing as I'm talking because I did my A levels or AS levels were history, maths, physics and chemistry. So for me, the three science subjects I did, those were a lot easier to do past papers with.
Right.
Whereas with history, it is true that you can do past papers and they really do help, because you just do essays and then you give them to the teacher and then they can kind of give you tips on where to improve and whatnot. Yeah. But it is harder in a sense because it takes a lot more time and the questions repeat less, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They obviously the subject and the specific part in history is going to be the same because those are the parts that you study, but that in those subjects it is more of a case of kind of trying to learn from your notes.
Right.
In whatever
way, but it is true that it is true that the more you practice doing essays, the better you're going to get.
100%, 100%.
And within the structure of the essay, there are certain things that the examiner will expect you to write and how to write them. Those are the things you have to practice. 100%. That's what I meant. Right. So now moving on, because we're taking quite a while doing this.
Yeah.
Moving on to the actual day of the exam, right? So you finished studying. The run-up has finished, and your exam is in 3 days, right?
Yeah.
What then? You have to give it the last thing, and then it's the day of the exam. What do you do?
Well, like I said, I think this boils down to, or in my specific case, I know everyone's not the same, and there's people that are more nervous than others, and thankfully I haven't really dealt with really, really, really high nerves. Obviously, I've been nervous for exams because it's inevitable, but I think for me, like I mentioned before, the thing that I found worked, or what I've noticed, is if I knew the subject very well, then I was less nervous, and if I didn't know it very well, then I was more nervous because it was like I mentioned before, if I got the right questions, then I'll be bad, then I'll be fine. But if I got the wrong questions, then it would be terrible. So I think just making sure you know everything very well, that's what worked best for me. And obviously I know that's it's not a very good tip, honestly.
Well,
because
let's try to keep it more practical, because obviously the time has elapsed already. You have no time for study anymore. You have maybe a day left. You can maybe do a quick run through, but the bottom line, you have an exam in 2 days' time, for better or worse. Of course, the better you know it, the more confident you are, the less nervous you're going to be. But there's some people that are A students and they get incredibly nervous the first day. On the day of the exam. Some things are really, really obvious. For instance, have a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You see, that's very obvious, but the thing is, right, is if you're incredibly nervous and you're like shitting your pants for this exam, you're not going to be able to sleep. And that's the facts. You're going to be turning around, twisting and turning in your bed, and you just won't be able to sleep until it's 3 a.m. You have to wake up at 7 for the exam or whatever, or even sometimes at 6, depending on how far away you are.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's a terrible situation, frankly.
Well, so then to counteract that, what's suggested is to, for instance, if you like your sport, then do exercise, but get physically tired, so that your body is actually physically tired, and you find it easier to go to sleep. Eat well, but not too much the night before. Have a good hearty meal that will get you tired, that will also relax you. Maybe watch a film that is not too high octane. Don't watch The Fast and the Furious or anything like that, but maybe watch, I don't know, Love Actually, something like that will distract your mind, keep your mind busy, but not concentrated on your exams.
Yeah.
If you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, give him a call, but don't talk about the exam. Give him a call and just talk about your day or whatever. Anything that takes away from the pressure of the exam the next day or in 2 days' time or whatever. That will help you so if your mind is tired, if your body's tired, then you will get a better night's sleep. If you have a good night's sleep, then the next day things will be very, very, very different. This happens even to people at my age, at 54. If I have a really important meeting one day, something that I have to prepare, or if I have to speak in public, which I don't like doing, that's what I find helps. Trying to keep my mind away from the task at hand. I've already done my prep. I've done as much as I could. There's no point dwelling in how much I have not done. So what I do is do some exercise, talk to friends, do whatever it takes to keep my mind away from the pressure of the next day, right? Have a good night's sleep, and then I find that when I wake up the next day, I'm as prepared as I'll ever be for it. If I haven't prepared well, and that's my problem, then of course it's going to be a pressure on me. But if I prepared well, I'm always confident and I wake up. I think that's crucial. Having a good night's sleep, having a rested body, having a tired body that will rest throughout that night. I think that's the biggest tip I could give to anybody that wants to.
I want to add kind of a couple things. So first of all, it's not something that I do, so I can't really say if it works or if it doesn't or how to do it.
Yeah.
But I have friends that do kind of meditation and breathing techniques. I've heard that works. So if you think that could work for you, I guess do some research. Like I say, I don't do it, so I couldn't tell you how efficient it is or how effective it is. But I could see how it works, and that's something else to try. The second thing is, frankly, I'm a big gamer and I like playing video games, so that's something that I do if I'm really stressed out, and if it's the night before and I'm like, I need to, just kind of relax myself and kind of maybe even just forget about the exam to be able to enjoy my time,
Yeah, exactly.
Play some video games.
I said watching a film, but anything that relaxes you, anything that goes. If you meditate, then meditate. If you pray, if you're religious, then have a little prayer. Why not?
Yeah.
I mentioned exercise, but after exercise, you can also take a nice leisurely walk down the garden path or down the beach or whatever to take your mind. Anything that relaxes you. Yeah. Whatever rocks your boat. Playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. I want to say something that's very important, and I think is something that's really not stressed on enough, and I think is a really big deal breaker.
Yeah.
It's hopefully not, but if for whatever reason the exam does go badly, typically in these exam sessions, you'll have one exam and then the next day or then in 2 days you have another one. So if you do have an exam, it goes badly, don't dwell on it. It is what it is. You can't change it. Try to forget about it and just focus on the next one. Try to do better for the next exam that you have in a couple of days, because that is something that I have noticed really is a big detriment to a lot of people. Is they do the exam, it goes badly, and they dwell on it. They still don't stop thinking about it. They're like, oh my god, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, why didn't I do this, why didn't I do that? I should have answered this or that. And I think the best thing to do is just forget about it. Focus on the next exam.
Move on.
And just do that, because
Yep.
dwelling on it isn't going to help you. It's not going to change the exam. What happened happened, and now just try to do those things that you think you could have done better on that exam. Do it for the next one.
Sounds good.
It is what it is.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
And that's what I think is the best thing to do.
Right. So that brings us. We've covered the do's. We covered the don'ts. We covered what works. We've covered what doesn't work, and all this according to the science, to the people that sit there and don't do exams. They just study how people do exams. So now it's time for the final part, which is your top 3 tips that make you get the results you want. So this is not science. This is not science backed. This is directly from the horse's mouth. The student that studies, and so far you're getting good grades. So all yours, Gabe. 3 tips. Number 1.
That I did this semester, which actually that really helped me a lot. It was studying with someone else. And I want to specify this it has to be the right type of person. It has to be someone that's on the same mindset as you, that wants to go there, that wants to study. Because if you get, I don't know, let's say your best friend that he doesn't really want to study, you're going to go there, you both study, you're studying, but he's going to be on his phone and going to be like, hey, look at this funny TikTok. That's not going to work out. It has to be someone that is motivated to study, like you, hopefully you are, that wants to study, that wants to be there, because you can feed off of each other, you can help each other. This is going to sound bad, but preferably it's either someone that knows the subject better than you or knows it worse than you. And this is because if it's someone that knows it better than you, they can help you out, they can teach you, they can give you tips, they can show you how to do some type of questions.
Yep.
So that's obviously very beneficial. But if it's also someone that knows it worse than you can be the person teaching. And teaching actually is a very, very, very good way of learning yourself.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
When you're explaining something to someone, you yourself are kind of mapping out and telling yourself how to do the question, and it really does solidify how to do it. Obviously I'm talking more in a STEM side, so it's easy to do this on STEM than it is for English and stuff like that, in more humanities based subjects. And it really is something that did really help me, because it clears up a lot of doubts that you had in yourself, if you are doing it right, or if you're good enough. Because if you're teaching someone something and they understand it, then that means that you understand it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's really, really, really important.
Perfect. So that's tip number 1. Study with somebody else, and somebody that has affinity with your system and your way of studying. That's there to take it just as seriously as you are, yeah? That is not going to distract you.
Yeah, maybe not the same way you study, but the same mindset. The same mindset of wanting to study and being motivated to study. I think that's really, really important.
Perfect. Tip number 2. Bring it on.
Number 2 is, this was constantly said to me when I was growing up, and I was kind of like, I don't think it really makes much sense, but it does really help. It's study somewhere else than in your typical relaxed spot. And what I mean by that is, if you, I don't know, let's say you're a big gamer and you have you play the PlayStation in your room or on your desk or wherever, then, I don't know, instead of studying in your room and your desk where normally you're playing the PlayStation, go somewhere else. I don't know, let's say to the sitting room, to the living room, or anywhere else in your house, or even what I think is the best is a library, because this will, it will get you away from your normal relaxed area, and B, it will take away even more distractions. So if you're sitting down, personally, what happened to me a lot of the times is I would be studying, I'll be sitting down, after half an hour I'd be like, oh, I'm bored of studying, and then I'll see the PlayStation, so I'll turn that on and play a few games of Fortnite or whatever. And, obviously that's not the best, that's not what we want to be doing. So if you kind of remove the distractions of the PlayStation or the PC or whatever it is, or Legos, whatever it is, that it really is, you don't think it would help, but it really does help. Or at least
so basically you're talking about moving physically to another location that is away from your comfort zone to create an atmosphere that's conducive to good concentration,
Mm-hmm.
and B, specifically and most importantly, to get rid of your daily distractions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. So get away from your TV, get away from your PlayStation. I'm assuming turn your phone off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if turning your phone off is the best, because some people use their phone, and obviously I kind of want to, if someone really needs me, they can still get in contact with me.
Right.
But at the very least,
don't doom scroll.
no, put your phone on do not disturb.
Right.
You know, if someone really does need you, then they can call you twice. You know, the first time I'll go to voicemail straight away, and then the second time then it will go through. But you know, if you have your phone there and every once in a while you get a notification of your best friend sending you a TikTok, you see it, you're gonna wanna.
Yeah, of course. No distractions then.
Go
so
on
I'd say in your case, you found the best way to do it is go to the university library.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I actually didn't go to the library. I just went to an empty classroom, but it's basically the same thing, because what happens is during these study periods, there's I mean, the library literally has a line outside of it, so you know, it's easy just to go to an empty classroom. But
right. So basically, and if you don't have the luxury of an empty classroom or a library, then you can just go to the room next door. To if you have a sibling, well, maybe you borrow your sibling's bedroom so it doesn't have your distractions. The sitting room if there's not people walking back and forth. A balcony if you have it. Or maybe even a friend's house, because you say study with somebody, finds that friend that you can study with that maybe does have an empty room, and then you can go there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Or maybe have a friend come to your house and they will help you. You can counteract each other, so you can help each other to avoid distractions if you have no choice but to study in your own bedroom where you have your regular distractions. Yeah. Okay.
Or if you really do have to study in your own room, then remove the distractions from your room. So that means unplugging your PlayStation and taking it to somewhere else or whatever.
Perfect.
That could also work.
So that's tip number 2. And now the one final tip. Tip number 3.
Which is, we talked about this already, but it's past papers. Like I said, I die on the hill of past papers. It could really make or break the subject for people, because a lot of the times what happens is you have an immense amount of information, but you're like, okay, I have all this information, but what can they ask me? What are the questions going to be formulated? How are the questions going to be formulated? Sorry. How are they going to ask me? What do I have to know? What don't I have to know? Because a lot of the times studying is about disregarding stuff that you think or you know are going to be irrelevant. And it really is important, and past papers are perfect for that. Generally, most of the times, like I said before, questions repeat themselves, or they're very, very similar questions with slight different wording or slight different numbers. And it really does help you. It kind of shows you what you have to know, how to know it, and what to do with the information.
Well, that's what they say. Practice makes perfect. That's an old adage, an old saying that just never gets old, because it's totally true.
Exactly.
Totally true. Perfect. Okay, so there you have it. So we've given you the most important scientifically proven techniques that work, the techniques that don't work, and the 3 studying tips. Let's not call them techniques. Let's call them tips. Practical tips, real world scenario tips that Gabe has given you that work for him to give him the best grades possible, and there's absolutely no reason why they should not work for you as well.
Exactly. I think it was a great one. I think people that are struggling with studying are gonna really this is going to really help them, and
definitely.
They should. I don't know if you'll enjoy this podcast, but it will really help you at least.
It's definitely been useful. And if there's any tips that we've missed, any tips that work for you that we haven't mentioned, that you find people have to know, please leave them in the comments. Make us part of your conversation, and of course watch our other videos. This video, by the way, as all our videos, will be broken down into little bits. This is probably an hour long or so. And if you don't want to watch all that, this will be divided into smaller videos throughout the week, so you can check those. They're smaller ones, and of course you also have the chapters down in the description. Just look at those and feel free to jump back and forth between tips that don't work, tips that work, whatever you want. But do leave a comment if we've missed something out, which we probably have.
Definitely.
Leave comments, give us your likes, give us your subscribes. Come back and watch us, because we need you. We need you. Please come back. And we'll see you next week. Love you guys.